Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our monthly Meet the Expert. This is our opportunity to bring you experts in the field and share information with you once a month so that everyone in the recruitment industry gets access to that training and development. I'm Angela Cripps, the MD of the Recruiting Gym, and I am very happy to say today we've got Jamie Martin from Correct Careers Coaching. You know that is a tongue twister. Jamie, welcome. How are you today?
Hi, Angela. Thank you for having me on the show. I am fantastic. Thank you for asking. And yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, managed to get a bit of time away in the sun last week in Portugal, Lisbon. That's been on my list for ages, and yeah, everyone told me it was wonderful. They were right. Definitely go. If it's not been on your list, add it to it. But anyway, enough about me.
Lovely.
Tell me about yourself. What you do.
Yeah, so I am managing director of Correct Careers Coaching. And I initially set up the business. It was more of a career coaching business, following my background in recruitment, had a really strong, successful career in recruitment. In starting Correct Careers Coaching now 5 years in, as I started doing training, workshops, speaking, it became more of a sales training, and then companies were employing me as an outsourced sales and marketing consultant. In recent years, I've been focusing around LinkedIn training because LinkedIn, since COVID times has been very popular, gone up 2000% in traffic. And I used to be a headhunter on LinkedIn. So sales training, LinkedIn training, and recruitment training is what I do as well. So that's me.
Now, I'm not sure whether that's me frozen or you frozen. Oh, no, I can see you smile there. So I have been having tech issues today, which is why I'm going to hand over to you because this is your time to share. So you have got a presentation for everyone. So I'm going to nip off into the wing. I will be here. There's questions and queries along the way. If I think it's relevant right there, do you mind if I interrupt you and ask you? But
Absolutely. It's fine.
yeah, if not, we usually try to leave them to the end and then have a discussion at the end. And I've always got questions as well that I'd like to do that. So I'll hand over to you. We'll put your slides onto the screen for you. And yeah, looking forward to this. Do love psychology in anything, but psychology in sales is even better. So I'm going to pin you down the bottom there. Let's get your screen up and you should have control of those. And we'll hand over to you. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Angela. Fantastic. Right, well, welcome everyone who has joined this session. We really appreciate it. I want to say a big thank you to Recruiting Gym for having me on this webinar and also JobAdder for sponsoring this. So we are going to start with looking at why sales psychology. And most importantly, why am I talking about sales psychology? My background is I have a psychology degree and a postgraduate certificate in business psychology. Psychology, the study of individual people, it's all about understanding individual differences, communication styles, and, in a sales context, long-lasting relationships. My background in sales is now over 14 years of sales experience. I started off from right at the beginning, my grounded sales in customer service in fast food. I then went on to do door-to-door sales for EDF Energy. And later on in my career, I then worked in a very successful job in recruitment as a senior C-level headhunter. So I've had a real range of sales, understanding the differences in how you sell, how you approach selling, how you sell to different individuals. I've probably sold to myself over 20 to 30 industry sectors. So I understand there is a real big difference in, how you approach different markets and, depending on what you're selling, service or products. So sales psychology it's been, a passion of mine. I wanted to create a business such as Correct Careers Coaching, looking at how we use sales psychology in the modern day environment, because it is now a modern environment. It's a digital age. There's so much AI and sales techniques we need to adapt to be able to really build really, strong business relationships, retain relationships in a very competitive world. If you want to know more about sales psychology, I have co-authored a chapter in the B2B Sales Top Tips Guidebook with Jim Marvine, and there's a chapter in there on sales psychology. So that will give you some more information following today's attendance. So Tony Robbins mentioned that actual business relationships is 80% psychology and 20% selling. So this presentation is going to be looking at a few areas of sales psychology to give you some useful tips and advice. And yes, I look forward to hearing some of your thoughts at the end. So, how can we apply psychology techniques when selling? And I want you to think about, while I'm speaking during this presentation, how you are interacting with your customers. Have you been pitching to customers that hasn't necessarily been successful, or it's gone down the customer journey, you got right to the negotiation pitch stage and they didn't follow up with you? So I want you to be thinking about how you can go and amend your customer journey, revisit clients, lapsed clients, clients you're still waiting to hear back from, and think about how you may a different approach based on what we are talking about today. Understanding individual differences when building business relationships. So it can kind of sound a bit common sense, a bit obvious, but actually, in reality, it's probably harder than we think. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different learning style. Everyone has a different communication style. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that moving forward during this presentation. And also everyone has a different way of correspondence. So it's not really about you now when you are looking to build relationships with your customers, your clients. It's about the individual you're speaking to, the decision maker. So you really have to spend some integral time at the beginning working out who this individual is, what's their preferred method of communication, what is their communication style. In reality, humans have an 8-second attention span. This is actually 1 second lower than a goldfish. It's because it's a very noisy world out there, and our short-term memory doesn't process all of the information. So if you know our attention span is quite short, you need to really focus on speaking to your target market, getting someone's attention very quickly on, whether that's using a social media channel, whether that's in your first phone call or meeting with them. And you really got to think about the primacy effect in psychology, and that is first impressions count. So everything you do is really important to build relationships and to build really strong synergy. Because effectively, as Tony Robbins quoted, people who are like each other tend to like each other. So what we really want to do with our customers and future customers, shall we say, is build a strong common ground, a strong likability and definite candor and trust with them. If we do that early on in the beginning of the interaction with the customer, then they will start to have an emotional buy with you. And we're going to see a little bit more about that in a moment. So I'm going to show you a sequence of actions, which is called a cadence process. And this is going to show you how to think about individual differences when you are building business relationships. So I hope you can see that on screen. This is only a simple spreadsheet. You can obviously use a more sophisticated CRM should you wish. But to give the example of what I mean by using a sequence of actions and then touch points, which is any correspondence with a customer, future customer, or a prospect in sales terminology. So a touch point, for example, could be anything from a WhatsApp message. It could be a LinkedIn private message. It could be a phone call. It could be a handwritten letter. There are hundreds of them. So it just goes to show there are more touch points you can do with someone to keep them in the customer journey. Now, research shows us that 80% of sales is actually done between 5 and 12 touch points. So don't give up in the beginning and earlier stages of working with a prospect. Continue on doing these touch points with them. Okay. And also, yes, in reality, if someone says, unless they say, no, I am not interested, then you are still able to use a touch point on them to keep in touch, because it might just not be the right time and place for them at that point in time to buy. Not only that, hence this spreadsheet and this cadence system. Some people might not have seen your message if it was, sent on social media. Their communication style may be different to yours. They may be more of a visual person rather than, a written format kind of person, or analytical. So you need to think about your communication style. You need to think about when you are communicating with them and how you are communicating with them. So talking about this cadence system, you've got the company demographics at the beginning. It's always good to do some research. You may have heard this in the sales world, but who is your ICP, your ideal customer persona? There's no point in just sporadically just trying to find a business. You really need to zone down in on who your future customers are, whether it's industry based, whether it's based on size, location, service, product, etc. There are many different reasons why a customer would want to work with you. I call it the business ecosystem as a starting point. Think of any customers you've got already. Think about who are their customers, or who are in their supply chain, or who are they working with? Because these are the people that more likely might want to work with you to start with, because you can get some strong referrals then. And also, if it was competitors of competitors, then they may have FOMO, fear of missing out. So in reality, really think about going after and approaching the customer who is likely to be your future customer, thinking about sales psychology. Okay, and then what we're going to be looking at is these touch points. So I'm just going to maybe use a platform such as LinkedIn, being one of the business #1 channels. You may start with a LinkedIn ad. You may then start with a private message to say thank you for connecting. You may do some TLC. In social media terms means tag, like, and comment, etc. You get the gist of it. And this can be not just over LinkedIn. This could be in any sales funnel. If you were doing an approach such as phone call first, maybe follow up with an email, maybe do a calendar invite, then try and do if you've got their number, a WhatsApp message or a text message, or leave a voicemail, because people resonate in different ways via communicating. The reason why I've shown you this example is because I've added columns with the date and times on there. So what I want you to work out is the best days and times your prospects are responding to you, because then that will show you in reality when they may have free time to look at these types of correspondence, or they may just check their social media if you're using LinkedIn as a platform to prospect them. So writing down the day and time would be really important. The best scientific approach you can get for it, but it may always not be accurate. But at least if you've got a best guesstimate, that is when you then should approach them again. For example, I remember when I was working in recruitment, I would ring the head of sales for a large FMCG company Monday morning about 8 a.m. because that's when they were traveling. So they would answer my phone call. So again, it's the time and day that's more important to the prospect you're approaching, not necessarily when it's convenient for you. As the touch points continue to go, you want to see what the interaction is like. And I encourage people I train that you may want to do some of the touch points again, because the first time round, not everyone may actually see the type of touch point, especially if it was like a like on one of their social media posts, or if it was a private message, or a DM as they call it. One last thing about this kind of cadence and touch point process is to use a traffic light system. So color code it green, amber, red. You want to color code it green for those individuals you've converted into revenue. Color code it amber for those people who are not ready to buy right now, but definitely worth following up with in the future. And red for those people who have said not interested, or they just haven't got back to you. You don't really want to reinvent the wheel here. You want to see what this color coding system is doing for you. And if you find a certain type of touch point has gathered a reaction from someone quicker, then you might want to rejig your cadence process and do that earlier on in the touch point system. So it makes you more effectively and strategically in your sales approach. Okay, I'm going to move on to adapting your communication style to sell effectively. One top tip I will give you is that for LinkedIn example, there is a Google Chrome extension called Crystal Knows. That's CRYSTALKNOWS.com. If you haven't heard of it or haven't used it, definitely try the free credits they've got with it. It aligns to the LinkedIn profile or people you look at. And if you use one of those credits, it gives you a bit of a personality assessment of them, their likes, their dislikes, their characteristics. Now, that is really useful information if, for example, you're using LinkedIn as a platform to approach them, because then you might tailor your communication style. You may not just write a message to them. You may record a video message and send that to them in a private message. So there's loads of different techniques that you can actually do using that extension, but also on LinkedIn to help convert people during the customer journey. That is part of our communication style to sell effectively. What I want to think about now is, each industry may be different. So you don't want to be using jargon words. You don't want to be using terminology that may not appear to them. And it's more about doing. So Dale Edgar in The Cone of Learning highlights that 90% of doing is actually more rememberable in a learning situation. So think about this maybe when you're actually in a meeting, a pitch meeting with one of your prospects. Okay, so could you get them to write something down? Could you get them to, sign something on paper? Could you get them to, have a go at your product or even go for a walk to the cafe? Those sorts of doing actions makes our energy, makes our chemicals like, dopamine go around the body if we're feeling good. This is a neuroscience technique. Hence why people will get that emotional buy when they are getting to know you and like you and trust you. So think about doing something with someone in a meeting, because that really is important. And I'm going to show you some other styles of communication and what this means. So you may or may not have seen the statistics before, but it really does speak volumes. And I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about how we can actually apply these in reality during our sales pitches. So if communication is only 7% verbal and 93% non-verbal, then it just goes to show you about 7% of what we say is only really processed. So that's a big statement. You've got 38% tone and pitch, and then you've got 55% body language, So let's break some of these down. I mean, of course, it's really important, what we say. We do want to sound credible. We do want to sound authentic. We do want to sound passionate and an expert in what we're talking about, especially when you're selling your products and services. So, but we can't just give them reels and reels of information to the prospect we're chatting to, break it down into bite-sized information. You can use chunking for that. It might be you talk more about benefits and needs-based selling rather than a lot of in-depth information, because you really want to grab their attention. Remember what I said about the average human attention span. Okay, and even when you get to such things as negotiation, don't give them reels of negotiation, just give them maybe one or two options. People tend to process, bite-sized information better, and hence you probably agree yourself that some people like to watch videos because, it's more adapting to certain people's communication style, but it's more rememberable and it's easy to watch rather than reading pages and pages of information. So it is important what you say, but it's also as important the other areas of your communication style, such as tone and pitch of voice. So you do want to adapt your tone at different stages of the communication with the correspondence with the customer. It might be that you emphasize some words or you articulate different words in a different way, and definitely using silence. Silence can be really powerful to make a point, to emphasize a point, or even give that prospect enough time to really think about, what it is that they are remembering from the conversation. Where's the emotional buy-in coming from? Okay, and then if you've given yourself time to breathe as well, and more importantly, read the responses of the prospect, that is really going to help you in closing the sale. So finally, we're going to finish with 55% body language. So mirroring is obviously quite a renowned technique, which I'm sure if anyone's had any sales training, they would have heard this, but it still stays valid today. Building a synergy with someone, if they're also hand gestures, it might be worth you doing that. A firm handshake, good eye contact, You know, those sorts of things and good body posture are quite obvious. But maybe if someone is a bit more introverted and their communication style is different to yours, you do need to be able to be adaptable to, you know, build a common ground and synergy with them, which I think is really important, because if it is about liking that person and, you know, and they may be interested in your service or product, absolutely. But what if they are seeing some of your competitors who have a very similar service or product? Then it's likely to come down to, you know, how you've actually built the synergy with them. It might be that you go and investigate body language a bit further if you know, you don't know how to read the signs of another individual, you know, and this could really help in closing more sales for you. A couple of techniques I can give you myself is that if you are sitting down with someone and they have their palms open, you know, palms facing up, then that's a sign of trust. If they maybe sit with their legs or, you know, body towards the door, it maybe look like that they're less engaged and their attention isn't there. So you really need to grab their attention back in the room again. And this could be for some of you who are doing sales roles over the phone. You know, it's not just about sitting and applying pitches in meetings, face-to-face meetings. What about when you're on the phone? Stand up, walk around. You know, it helps with your breathing, it helps with your tone and pitch of voice. Get your body moving, and this will really help come across in your delivery of sales communication. So I've mentioned a couple of times already, it is about how we use our emotions and how we then buy based on our emotions. If you can use the chat, and I like it to be engaging, can anyone guess what percentage we buy on our emotions? If you can put it in the chat what your guess is, that would be great. I haven't got any guesses, that was great. However, I'm sure you're all thinking about, oh, you know, what percentage do we buy based on our emotions? Well, it's actually 90%. So 90% emotive buying. That's a huge.
I'm guessing 50%, Jamie.
Oh, thank you.
I'm thinking it's half and half, but maybe it isn't.
No, good guess. No, it's 90%. So 90% we buy based on our emotions, and only 10% cognitive rational thinking. These statistics are huge. It goes back to the slide before, you know, 7% of really only what we say. So 90% based on our emotions. You probably heard this yourself. What is your gut feeling telling you? If we feel good, our dopamine levels are released, and you know, we have a great positive aspect on relationships and how we feel about our people surrounding us and the business world. So it is about building those strong emotions. And how can we do that? Well, Bob Berg quotes KLT, know, like, and trust, which you've already heard me say during this presentation. Know, like, and trust is super important. How do we get to know someone? How do we like someone? And how do we trust someone? It's really based around the cadence process I said to you at the beginning. I want you to think now back at that cadence and touch point sequence I showed you. If someone was prospecting you from like a cold perspective, and they, you know, got to know you in a certain way by just looking at your LinkedIn profile, maybe do a subtle phone call or email. How do we build likability? We may like some of their social media posts. We may send them a thank you message for connecting. And hey, we haven't even talked about business right now. It may be that you have even sent them a referral, or that you maybe sent them some sort of link of interest to an article or industry news letter. And then how do you build trust? Well, trust, you know, will come from listening to them, communicating with them in the right way, understanding where they're responding, and re-communicating back with them the best days and time for them. It might be that they've looked on some of your platforms and seen testimonials and Google reviews, etc. And that's going to build trust. So these are some top tips for how we can build the KLT process with individuals. And that's certainly going to help you when you are in that customer buying journey stage and getting ready to have those conversations or convert those conversations into sales. And as I mentioned already as well, sometimes we have different ways of communicating, such as VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So if someone is more of an auditory listener, then you might need to do an audio message if you were going to private someone message on their social media channels like LinkedIn, or if you was going to send them a WhatsApp message. But also think about the principles of NLP, what we say, how we say it, the terminology we're using while we say it. So you could do signposting during your pitch meeting, on a scale, how would you feel if my product or service had this outcome for you? Or when we work together, or after using my service or product for a couple of months, this is what will then happen. We'll give you an upgrade. We will give you, a loyalty discount, or whatever it may be. Think about the terminology you're using, especially for those industry specific. If it's working with professional services, accountancy, solicitors, think about the terminology they will use and understand. So it really is adapting your communication style to your audience again. Okay, we're coming towards now, that's all great. We've learned how to, adapt our communication style, understand our customers' communication style to really improve your sales pitches. But what about memory? At the end of the day, we are only human. There's a lot of information shared already in this short pace of time. And also, in reality, there's a lot going on in the business world. And you are juggling a lot of hats. So here's some top tips for improving your memory during sales pitches. Definitely write it down and rehearse the information. 70% of writing things down is more remembered, as per Legge's cone of learning. Chunking information into smaller notes can also be quite useful. Using those classic post-it notes, they could be really helpful. And using acronyms to remember key benefits. There was a psychological study by Perves et al. In 2008, that during looking at the short-term worker memory, shorter words were actually remembered than longer words. Now, it sounds obvious, but how often are you using acronyms to remember your information during pitches? Or have you even thought about trying using acronyms when you're with clients about your service or product? As long as you have explained, obviously, what the acronym means. A really renowned acronym in sales conversations is TED. Tell me, explain to me, describe to me. There are hundreds more. So, remember these acronyms, use them, create your own. But that's really going to help you when you are memorizing information. Also, some more top tips. Use storytelling. Storytelling is 65 to 70% more memorable than information sharing. So it's really important to use case studies, quote statistics, and outcomes of customers that have already worked with you to the new prospects you are looking to convert to be a future customer. This is really then going to help your conversion rates. And some other really interesting facts. Learn when experience good smells. The smell sense has the highest link to memory, which is interesting. And also exercise and healthy lifestyle. Apparently eating dark chocolate while you learn would really good memory link for you. I should have said to grab a dark chocolate bar at the beginning of this webinar. So finally, thank you for listening to my top tips and training today on sales psychology. There is going to be some questions at the end, so I'd like to hear what your thoughts were or anything specifically you want to ask. The reason why I put your turn on screen is because I want you to now, as I said at the very beginning, I want you to go back to someone who you haven't heard back from when you sent them a proposal. I want you to look at anyone you started at the very beginning of their customer journey prospecting. And I want you to really think about some of these key elements I've mentioned today in how you are corresponding with them and adapting your communication style to theirs as you progress down the customer journey. And then see if this really does make a difference for you in more conversions, which is what we're hoping from today. And then I really want you to finally celebrate your successes, because any little win is worth celebrating. So we've got questions and answers, I believe, Angela. And thank you very much.
Fantastic. Let me bring you back on, focus you onto the stage there, and let me drop myself back in there. Oh, there were some things in there that really did take me back a little bit, remind me. Good old TED, I've just put in there. I love tell me, explain, describe. It's such a great way when people are struggling to get an open answer, to try and get people to open up. If you can just get TED in your head, it makes a huge difference, doesn't it? But I do want to dive in first of all. You brought up communication pie there. Now I never knew how to pronounce this guy's name, so I'm hoping you do. Albert Mehrabian.
Yes, 1960. Yeah.
Yeah. So through the 60s and 70s, this was established, wasn't it? That only 7% of when we're trying to convey a message, if it's face to face, is the words, and everyone goes, no, that's not true. No, I don't believe that. And of course, you then give an example. And my favorite one was getting people to swing their arms around and then tell them to make an O and then bring that down and put it on your cheek. Don't put it on their chin. And it's like, did I say chin? They went, no, you said cheek. Well, why have you got it on your chin then? Oh, I was just following you. Yeah, exactly. We believe what we see before we believe what we hear. So that visual is so important when you're conveying a message, that it is correct. And now I think I'm right in saying they updated this recently, hadn't changed. So those stats from 50, 60 years ago, and I'm going to sneeze in a second, bear with me. It's usually 3. No, we might be all right. No, one coming. But that makes sense, really. When I sort of looked into this, because we didn't have words, did we, initially? We had to communicate as individuals without a language. It was grunts and groans. So actually, your body language was so important to know, is this friend or foe? Do they look aggressive or not? And then of course the tone of those grunts as to whether they were friendly or not. And that really helped me with understanding that, yeah, it's not necessarily what you're saying, it's how you're saying it and how you're portraying yourself when you're saying it can make a huge difference to whether people believe you or not. So that's enough of me. Let's pass it back to you. Your thoughts, Jamie?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like I said, it takes a moment to get your head around, because although the statistics are there, some of us have probably heard this, the research hasn't particularly very much changed. But how are we in reality actually using that? And you know, human nature isn't just to think every single second of every single day. It's just not possible. So maybe takeaways from what you were saying, Angela, and the information learned from today is just maybe try 1 or 2 changes during a meeting to your body language or tone and pitch of voice, and see if that makes a difference for you. But you really have to think about, first of all, kind of analyzing who you're speaking to first, and then try and do a little bit of a mirroring, you know, and try and align your body language to them and their tone and pitch of voice as well. I think if you did that, the conversation would run a lot more smoothly.
And we do it naturally. This came up on a LinkedIn post this week that, our bodies do it naturally to build rapport, don't they? To because we want people to like us. And of course, in sales, it makes a big difference. But unfortunately, we can get caught up in that a little bit. I know I have a problem. If I'm speaking to people with very strong accents, all of a sudden I start taking on their accent, and it's not conscious. It's unconscious. But then you suddenly catch yourself doing it. You think, oh my goodness, that's awful. No, I think I'm taking the mickey out of them or something, but it's not. It's our bodies going, yeah, blend, mirror, be like them, because then they're going to like you. And it's fascinating that, yeah, the psychology in sales, I love it. It makes such a difference.
It is about them liking you as well, but I think taking it one step further, as you mentioned it, Angela, about psychology, it might be that the way that their brain processes information and understand their communication style, which would then hence understand your communication style if it was similar to them. And that is a real serious food for thought there. It is really about your customers' communication style. And also there's loads of other techniques and tips that were mentioned throughout. You know, they may not want to see written messages all the time. Have you gone back and tried sending them a video recording or an audio message and see if that's just made a huge difference? I'm sure we all have some examples of how that's actually worked. So why are you not using this approach pretty much all the time?
Yeah, I'm very much a visual. I do like colour, as you can see, and a graph, a picture to me speaks 1,000 words. But you talked about the visual auditory kinesthetic in there. When you're looking at NLP, you've got digital as a fourth, and therefore appreciating how people like to be communicated with. You're the one that's got to be the chameleon. You're the one that adapts, and therefore understanding where they're coming from and what appreciates them. And of course, you won't know to start with. This is trial and error. So you stated some facts at the beginning there. Can you just repeat those around the number of contacts, the number of activities you're likely to have to do before you probably will get successful?
Yeah, so in a sales statistic, 5 to 12 touch points is usually when 80% of sales are done. So it means that, you know, most people don't follow up during the customer journey because they don't hear back. And as I said in the presentation, unless someone really says no, they've left it open for you to continue approaching them in the right way. And that might be they haven't got back to you because your communication style wasn't right. The day and time you contacted them wasn't right. So yes, it is a little bit of trial and error, and you do need to continue to maybe go back and look at some of these prospects and look at how you can adapt your communication style and techniques to communicating with them. And I'm sure, like yourself, Angela, as me, I've had hundreds of stories where it might have taken me 9 months or even a year for someone to become my customer, but they have and become one of my best customers. So it just goes to show you should keep doing it.
Yeah, I usually quote the T.A. Shakes Big Biller book here. So it was a little while ago, and those figures still fit because the stat was around 6 as an average of contacts and touch points, but 84% of people give up by 4. So you're not going to get to the 6. And can we have a shout out here? Because obviously those people that send the automated emails, they've latched onto this and gone, right, I need to keep sending, because I need at least 6 before I'm going to get anywhere. No, it's try different things. The 6 of the same thing, the definition of insanity, isn't it? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Yes, you need lots of contact, but it's got to be different touch points. So I loved on there with your spreadsheet. Okay, well, let's have a LinkedIn connection. Let's share a post that you think might be interested. Let's send them a WhatsApp if you've got their mobile. Send them a picture, a GIF. They get me every time, actually. Because I'm a visual and I love seeing something move and interesting. I will look at it. But if you send me the same email over and over again, no, the likelihood is it's not going to grab my attention. It won't stand out. And therefore, it's got to be different, hasn't it? So, yeah, there is so much to this topic. And we could talk and talk and talk, couldn't we? If you've got any questions, you've got a few more minutes. So please do put those in there. Let me just go and check over on LinkedIn Live and everything there. And I was listening on the LinkedIn Live, which is about 10 seconds behind. So apologies when we were doing the percentages. Because I was so kicked in. And then I realised when I come back here, oh no, you'd asked that a little bit earlier. But that shocked me as well. I'm thinking 50-50. And I'm guessing it's different for everyone, isn't it? If you're more emotional and taken to that way. Because I try to think of myself as a logical, level-headed person that does heart and brain, and it's like, right, well, okay, let's think about this before I make the decision. But if it's 90% emotional, then that's our immediate sort of trigger that we make decisions on. That's going to have a huge impact.
I think it was the point I said, you are right. And, you know, a lot of us would be logical, rational. We would research other competitors. We would look at reviews and satisfactions. We would look at all of this. However, what if you've got some companies, some products, services that are really similar? Then that's where I feel the emotional buy will come in. Yeah. How have they presented themselves? How have they communicated with you? How have you felt during the, correspondence process? What if someone sends you like a random act of kindness, like a gift in the post, or someone sends you a thank you email in a picture format? It's all these little touches that will give you more of that emotional buy. And if you really can't logically make the decider, you're going to go based on if you know them, if you like them, and if you trust them, the emotional decision.
Yeah, so we've definitely gone into understanding differences when building relationships, and if we can just get that one piece for people to take away, it's not that they all got to be like you've got to be like them, and adapting your style. The other bit you talked about as well was improving your memory for these sales pitches. So things like TED, tell me, explain, describe. PES is another one. So if you've got any acronyms that you like to use, please share those. So for me, that questioning, if you're not getting detail, if you're not, if that probing question, you think, oh, there's more to this, and that's what a good recruiter should do all the time. Keep going, don't accept the first answer. Then PES, spelled like the old sweets, but it's precisely, exactly, specifically. So precisely what was your involvement in that project? Because people will share this wonderful project and give you an example from a competency-based interview question. And then when you say precisely what was your involvement, oh, okay, yeah, I typed up the notes. Okay, didn't actually do much in relation to that. But yeah, exactly what did you do? Specifically, walk me through the process. So things like that can really then delve in, and yeah, it's remembering it at the time, isn't it? Because when you're talking to someone, your brain can go blank very easily. So if you've got these little mnemonics to help you, and you used to have stickers on the computers and everything, have the visuals around, maybe in a visual. It was like, no, stick them up, top 10 questions, have them down the side of your computer screen to remind you to ask those good questions, and make them open as well, so that you're not asking loads of questions. So lots of things you can do. Yes, Jamie.
I'm going to kind of leave it with practice. You only become perfect when you practice it. So before the pitch meeting, go and practice it with a colleague. You'll feel then more relaxed when you actually go and do it.
I'm smiling because I've been watching the Olympics with my 85-year-old father, and we watched the skateboarding, we watched the climbing, and pretty much every sport, and the gymnastics, and every sport goes, how do they do that? And all I've been saying all week is practice. Yeah. It's the key to everything, isn't it? So that's a great way to finish, especially with the Olympics just finishing as well. So that time frames this as to when it was, but we're looking forward to the Paralympics again, because we're all getting a little bit of missing out again now, that FOMO. It's like, what else is going to fill it? Well, Paralympics, you've got about 10 days and that will start. So do watch that, because there'll be even more inspiring stories for that. And I feel like people sometimes watch the Olympics, don't then carry on. So make that a key thing to this year, to give some support to the Paralympics as well, and you'll love it. You really will. There's my wristwatch buzzing. That's our time. Thank you so much, Jamie. Your link is in there for people to connect with Jamie to find out more about what he does. Thank you again to Job Adder for sponsoring our Meet the Expert. We've got, oh, the brain's gone dead. That's no good. Okay, we'll be back again next month, and it's with a wonderful person. I've just forgotten their name. So sorry about that. Oops. Get more.
You should write it down and rehearse it, Angela.
I had it on a tab, but because everything was glitching a little bit for me, I closed everything down, and then my brain's gone dead. But that's what happens, see? And then we just have to ride with it. I think it's Saibor, and if it's not, and if it's someone else, I'm going to feel really bad now. But that's the name I've got in my head, but I really wasn't convinced it was, so I was hesitating. But there we go. Let's go with that. If it's not, I'll get him on. I'm sure it is. Brilliant. Thank you, Jamie. We'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.